Before I introduce our speaker tonight, I would like to just say a really huge warm welcome and thanks for coming to this plant-based eating speaker series event. I'm your host, Emma Levez-Larac. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, a certified plant-based chef, a food for life instructor with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and creator of the Plant-Based Eating Support Network group. These monthly events are part of this Plant-Based Eating Support Network group, which is an online subscription-based group that provides ongoing nutrition and cooking support for people who are interested in learning more about the benefits and practicalities of a whole food plant-based lifestyle. A plant-based lifestyle, as many of us here know, has so many benefits for our health, for the environment, and for the animals that we share the planet with. And there are so many incredible people working to raise awareness about these benefits. The speaker series is designed to bring the voices of a variety of plant-based experts to members of the support network group, and I'm pleased to be able to open these events to the wider community as well. We feature medical professionals, doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, naturopaths, as well as individuals who have inspiring change stories to share and groundbreaking and inventive plant-based chefs. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for tonight. Dr. Laura Chiavaroli is a clinical trialist and a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Toronto and St. Michael's Hospital. Laura's primary research interests over the past 10 years have been in the field of nutrition and cardiometabolic health, specifically in carbohydrate nutrition and obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. Alongside her mentor, Dr. David Jenkins, with whom she completed her MSc and PhD, Laura gained vast experience conducting randomized controlled trials and working with the Portfolio diet, which is a cholesterol-lowering plant-based diet, Glycemic Index, and on carbohydrates and sugars. Laura has robust experience in nutritional epidemiology, specifically in the conduct of systematic reviews and meta-analyses from her work with Dr. John Sievenpiper. Is that right? Yes?
Yep.
Who is her current mentor. In the past few years of her postdoctoral fellowship, Laura has expanded her experience in knowledge translation strategies, including patient and physician-facing resource development and web-based mobile app development. She also has a great interest in education and mentorship, as well as environmental sustainability and planetary health. She is one of the founding team members of Plant-Based Canada, where the focus is to educate healthcare professionals and the public on evidence-based benefits of plant-based eating, and is actively involved in events centered on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I was introduced to Laura through Plant-Based Canada, which is an amazing organization, and many of you in the Plant-Based Eating Support Network group had the opportunity to hear from other members of Plant-Based Canada. So a very, very warm welcome, Laura. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
I wonder if you could start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your plant-based journey. What inspired you to start working in the field of nutrition and cardiometabolic health in particular?
Yeah, sure. So I started in my undergrad, in second year undergrad, volunteering with Dr. David Jenkins. Actually was with Dr. Vuxen, who's also part of that group, but Dr. Jenkins was just down the hall, just getting a sense of just the field of the way diet and nutrition can impact our health. So it just became very impactful right off the bat that this was the way to go. So as an undergrad, you're thinking whether or not you possibly want to go to med school, what do you want to do next, kind of exploring that path. And I kind of chose the path of prevention and staying in with research. So Dr. Jenkins asked me if I wanted to do a master's with him afterwards. So we dove into the 6th Portfolio diet randomized controlled trial, and it was a metabolic study. So we provided all the food to the participants. So I really got to see everything that they were eating. I met with the patients every week. So seeing everything that they're eating and then the amazing effects that was happening on their cholesterol on a week-to-week basis was just really impactful for me to know that this was kind of where I wanted to dedicate my career. So I then afterward did a PhD with Dr. Jenkins, where I got to see people that had type 2 diabetes in a 3-year randomized controlled trial looking at the effect of a low glycemic index diet. So looking at, carbohydrate containing foods. And then after that, I dove out into a postdoc in Italy, and I got to live and breathe the Mediterranean diet, which was, again, a great experience. And then came back home to continue with Dr. Jenkins, but more so under Dr. Stephen Piper, to continue on with this wonderful work and kind of take it to the next level. So seeing that, there is this amazing impact of diet on health. And it's great that we do these studies and that we can kind of get them into guidelines, but then there's kind of this, it gets stuck. So, a lot of doctors aren't trained in nutrition, so they're not really relaying a lot of nutrition information to their patients. So even though we can get it into guidelines, unless you're seeing a dietitian, it's really hard to get that information to patients. So kind of where I've been focusing on the past 5 years is really on that knowledge translation. What kind of tools, what kind of resources do we need to start building to try to help get that information into the hands of patients, and helping to educate doctors and the next generation of doctors to help get that information ready to go for them. So that's kind of really where I've been, where I'm going. And there's been a lot of other fun projects that I've been involved with along the way. Getting involved with Plant-Based Canada for now past couple of years is a great organization that really helps with the outreach, because it's unique in the sense that a lot of the conferences that we go to are very focused on the health professionals, which is important, but Plant-Based Canada makes sure all their conferences are open to the public as well. So helping to make sure that we can get this, the latest science information to the public directly is important.
Incredibly encouraging. I think, just to hear that type of work is going on and being shared, trying to get this information out to patients, because I think that's such a, that's such a gap that has existed. So wonderful. Thank you so much. So you've done extensive work with the portfolio diet, which I mentioned is a cholesterol lowering plant-based diet. And I was wondering if you could give an overview of what the portfolio diet is for those who haven't heard about it. How was it developed, and the work that you've done conducting randomized controlled trials using it, please?
For sure. If you don't mind, I'll share my screen at this point, because it's easier to just show you a bit of what the diet is. Can you see the screen? It's all good? Yes. Okay, wonderful. So there's basically 4 what we call pillars or food categories of the portfolio diet. So we have nuts, which we recommend at about 45 grams per day. Viscous fiber, which is that sticky fiber that you see in oats, barley, psyllium. And so that is at 20 grams of viscous fiber per day. Vegetable protein, which is principally coming from your soy and pulses, so beans, lentils, chickpeas, at 45 grams a day, and then plant sterols. And generally, you're going to get your plant sterols from supplements or fortified food. It used to be in a Proactive margarine that Basel made, but they discontinued it a year ago when they got bought out by another company, unfortunately. So really, it's primarily coming from supplemented foods. So the idea of the portfolio diet originated with Dr. Jenkins. So these 4 categories of foods had individually been shown in many studies in the kind of early 90s that they reduce cholesterol by about 5% each. So he had this idea of what happens if I put them all together in a diet, what happens? And what he demonstrated that was that with the combination of what's called an NSEP-STEP2 background diet, which is just a low saturated fat, low cholesterol diet, they got about a 30% reduction in cholesterol. So that was pretty exciting to see. I'll just very scientifically here show you this graph, which demonstrates the results of one of the kind of pivotal trials that he did, which was published in 2003. And so he randomly assigned people that have high cholesterol to either a control group, which was just a low-fat whole wheat cereal diet. So kind of what you would consider as the standard of care, just low saturated fat, high whole grains. And then another group of people to the portfolio diet. And then another group of people to 20 milligrams of lovastatin. So this is a moderate dose statin drug. And so what he demonstrated was that with all food provided to the control diet and the portfolio diet group, after 4 weeks, you got about a 30% reduction in LDL cholesterol on the portfolio diet, which was the same as the group that was given the statin. So what he demonstrated here was that that diet can be as effective as drug in lowering your cholesterol. So this example shows you what happens when you provide all the food. So you kind of make it easy for people. They don't need to decide. They don't need to go out and shop and find things. Everything is just delivered right to them. So the next I guess, big study to kind of show is what happens when you just give it as diet advice. So the participants come into the clinic, you give them a diet advice, give them a little sheet to take home, and they kind of go and do it on their own. So this was a multi-center trial across Canada, 5 sites across Canada. Again, to also demonstrate that it's not effective just within the very small expert team in Toronto, but across all of Canada. And you had people randomized again to a similar low-fat whole wheat control group or to the portfolio diet. In this case, we had 2 groups at different levels of intensity of diet advice for the portfolio diet. And in this trial, it went out to 24 weeks. And they saw about nearly 15% reduction in LDL cholesterol. And the adherence to the diet just by diet advice was about 46%. So what he showed in this study was that 2 things. One is that the amount of cholesterol reduction you get is directly correlated with the adherence to the diet. So the more people follow the diet, the greater the reduction that they saw. And so even by following the diet at about 50% of the recommended amounts, you're getting clinically significant reductions in LDL cholesterol. So it was still a really important study to show what would happen in the real world. And then just quickly, kind of beyond LDL cholesterol, this I know is a very, very busy slide, but basically we conducted a systematic review meta-analysis where we pulled together all the randomized controlled trials that had been done on the portfolio diet. And kind of what you can see is with all this green here, it's basically showing you that beyond LDL cholesterol, which is the kind of top outcome that you have there, across all these other cardiometabolic outcomes that we explored, you're seeing significant reductions in other markers of blood lipids, reductions in blood pressure, inflammation, and reductions in coronary heart disease risk calculated by the Framingham risk score. So really what we got to see here was that it's definitely effective in cholesterol reduction, but you're also seeing a reduction across a wide spectrum of risk factors for cardiovascular disease overall. And then this is just from a cohort meta-analysis, so trying to look at actual coronary heart and cardiovascular events and death. So this is looking at association, so taking a big group of people. In this case, we used the Women's Health Initiative and looked at the portfolio diet score, so calculating a score. And if you compare people that are have the lowest intake of portfolio foods, and to people with the highest intake of portfolio foods, those with the highest intake have about 11% reduction in total cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, and heart failure. So there's a lot of good evidence here to say that if we were to do a big study in nutrition, you're talking millions of dollars studies to do these kinds of things, you hopefully would see very similar type of effects. So I hope that gives you a good idea of what the portfolio diet is and the scientific evidence that we have from all of the trials and some cohort studies that we've done to date.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And the slides were helpful. I found them helpful to look at, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Can you talk about the fact that the portfolio diet you mentioned is recognized in cardiovascular guidelines internationally at this point? Can you talk a little bit about what that means and the impact that has on the advice that heart patients receive about what they should be eating?
Yeah, sure. So in guidelines, whether it's Diabetes Canada, the Canadian Cardiovascular Society, Obesity Canada, and these are just the Canadian guidelines. It's also in American Heart Association and European guidelines as well. When we talk about nutrition therapy, the portfolio diet is always there. So that kind of also gives it credit that it's kind of recognized everywhere. So when a doctor or a specialist is looking at the guidelines and they possibly are perusing through the nutrition therapy section, they will see the portfolio diet and hopefully include that in the diet advice. Or if it's part of the healthcare team, dietitians can be including it in the different types of diets that they talk about with the patients. There are various dietary patterns that are in the guidelines, including the Mediterranean diet, DASH diet. So it really helps that having the portfolio diet there just gives that one more option, especially if people have high cholesterol. That should be the one that would be top of the list for a doctor or a healthcare professional to recommend to their patients.
Have a good question that's sort of relevant, definitely relevant right now. Why is it called the portfolio diet?
Dr. Jenkins was just kind of trying to come up with something, I guess, unique. So it'd be like a portfolio, or, kind of like your stock portfolio gives you that variety to try to give you the best angle at getting your cholesterol down. And it's actually interesting because when you look in into the mechanisms, the 4 pillars actually target 4 different pathways of how to reduce cholesterol. So that is probably why you get the additive effect, right? Because they're not working all on the same line. They're working on different tracks to try to all help get that cholesterol level down.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've been doing is developing an app for the portfolio diet. So can you tell us about that and how it will help people who want to adopt this way of eating? And I understand you have a new, you just got some grant money for associated with this, I think.
We did. It was persistence, 3 years of applications to the Canadian Institute of Health Research to prove to them that it's worthwhile to invest in the app to try to help with relaying the information to patients. So the app is again, it's okay. The app is it's a web-based app and a mobile-based app, so that we're trying to be as open and diverse as possible. So everybody, doesn't matter what your status is, hopefully you should be able to access this and use it. So even if you don't have a smartphone and have the latest technology where you would download this from an app store, you could use it on your home PC. If you don't even have a home PC, as long as you can get access to internet at a library, hopefully you should still be able to access the app and all the resources that we house within it. So the app is something that's led by Dr. Stephen Piper, myself, and a couple others of the team. And we have one of the cardiologists at St. Mike's who actually has a computer software background, who develops all the apps for the Canadian Cardiovascular Society. So when doctors are in the clinic and they quickly need to calculate your cardiovascular risk, they use an app, and that's the person who created that app is the doctor that we're working with to create our app as well. So it will be an app that's available on the Canadian Cardiovascular Society website. Again, we're trying to make these connections so it's easy for doctors as well as being easy for patients to access. So the app is something to be used as an educational resource. So you've got all the information you need to learn about the portfolio diet. We've got a massive resource bank. So tip sheets, recipes, videos, everything on there to try to help relay information to increase your knowledge of the portfolio diet. It's something to try to help you track adherence, so how well you're following the portfolio diet. So it's not meant for you to enter all the foods that you're eating and be like a food diary. It's meant for you to just enter those portfolio foods. So letting you to just focus on not total calories a day or anything like that, just making sure, am I getting in my nuts? Am I getting in my soy protein, things like that. And then we also have some features on the app to help with patient-physician engagement. So we've got some areas where you can press like a print button, and it'll help bring up kind of your graph of your average score over the past month, so that When you go to your doctor, there's actually another graph we're developing right now for you to put in your
Daisy, get down.
Sorry. Hold on.
Oh, I got muted there.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, so we've got another graph that'll come up where you can enter measurements for your body weight, your blood pressure, if you've got a home monitoring system, or if you're diabetic and you've got capillary finger prick samples, you can put your glucose in. When you see your doc and you get your cholesterol results, you can pop those in. So it'll graph over time the changes in your measurements. You can kind of feel like you have a bit more control over seeing how are my measurements changing and how is it related to maybe my portfolio score and how well I'm following the diet. And then you at your patient visits with your doctor, with your dietitian, whoever it is that you're talking to, your healthcare team, you can show them that. So quickly have a bit of a sense of how well am I following the diet and how am I seeing changes in my measurements. And then for large trials, it's a way for us to be able to use it as a tool to relay information and gather some information as well. So for data collection. We're working with some healthcare service researchers who have experience in mobile technologies and psychologists that have expertise in behavior change theory, because we're trying to integrate concepts to have sustained behavior change be kind of something. So this isn't hopefully not going to be something that'll just be a fad that you do for a month because you think it's cool and then you're done. It's hopefully something that will engage you enough to be able to make it a lifestyle change, so that you can kind of get the long-term benefits.
So when are you anticipating that will be available, and how is that something that anybody will be able to just download as an app?
Yeah, it's technically live right now. Anybody can go to portfoliodiet.app and create an account. I have to activate it. So if you create an account, I would get an email that says, whatever email you put in as the kind of account name, I'll reach out to you to see kind of basically who you are, where you're coming from, and to let you know that, we're kind of still in development stages. So there will be times when, something might look a little glitchy, and that's just because we're still updating it. We did just get, as you mentioned, a big grant to do this as a study, to see whether or not it would work in real world practice, right? So basically, I think the end goal really here is to get this app in the guidelines so that a doctor could say, oh, look, this is a recommended dietary pattern. Oh, look, there's an app. So now when I feel like I may want to engage my patient in it, all I need to do is give them the app, and it should be enough for them to follow along. And so hopefully this trial will be able to demonstrate, yes, you give them the app, they should be able to follow it. And we're creating also some like healthcare professional facing materials as well, so that in 2 minutes, a doctor could look at an infographic and a 2-minute video to say, oh, yep, I get it. I can, in a nutshell, understand what this app is going to do and what this diet is, and feel confident that it's something that I can talk to my patient about.
Okay. So I'm wondering if, because I know in the plant-based eating support network group, people are all along the spectrum of, from plant curious to complete absolute whole foods, plant-based, no oil, so on. But so I'm wondering if you are talking to somebody, or you're giving advice to somebody who is just getting started with plant-based eating and looking to eat to protect their cardiovascular health, or dealing with common chronic conditions like hypertension, high cholesterol, what would be sort of the first thing that you advise them about a place to start?
The answer to that question is the category that you feel most comfortable with. There's tons of studies, even if you look at studies on weight loss diets, there's tons of different weight loss diets. What works? Whatever you follow works. So we kind of say, and it's in the guidelines too, they say you look at the values and preferences of your patient in order to guide what you want to try to help them start with. So I would look at the 4 pillars and say, what do you feel most comfortable with starting? Do you feel like nuts is something that you could start integrating into your diet? Let's start with that. Or whether you think you're willing and able to start with something like plant proteins. So will you be able to start replacing some of the current sources of protein with soy-based products or pulses? So kind of working with people one-on-one and seeing, where you're comfortable with, that's where you should start. And then you build from there, right? So with the portfolio diet, which is great, is that you see that there's like a progressive reduction. So you can start small and then keep going. And if there's a category that you're like, look, I just can't, this is not something that would fit within my diet, that's okay. Even if you're going to get halfway there, you're still going to see good reductions in your cholesterol.
Okay, thank you. So you are also a founding member of Plant-Based Canada. Can you talk a little bit about your role there and how that fits into some of this, the nutrition education piece in particular?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do the annual conferences, so it's always exciting to get all the latest information from researchers and people that are active in the field. But my role specifically is to really try to help with the I guess my expertise really is the knowledge translation part of it, right? So what can we do to really help engage people more with the information? So, doing different talks, any opportunity that we have to try to reach out and relay information, address questions, things like that. That's what we engage in. This morning, I had a chat with a bunch of endocrinologists at the hospital to kind of relay dietary pattern and disease information to try to, and then showing them, look, these resources are here, they're on your site. Did you know they were there? Let's, maybe start using them if you like to. You've got a dietitian down the hall. Let's engage with the dietitian and see, if they wouldn't mind talking to the patient, and then, they can support the patient in making these kinds of changes that you might not feel comfortable talking about or engaging in yourself. And, any other type of things, like there's a plant-based diet certificate that's being rolled out at the University of Guelph. So I'm developing 2 of the courses for that, and we'll be teaching them to start. So again, anything to try to get out there, get into the community for people that want to know and kind of get that snowball effect going, right? So if you teach people that want to teach other people and relay that information, hopefully we'll get some good outreach. I work a lot with students as well. So at U of T, we've got tons of different student groups and different internship programs that are happening. So I work with the medical students, helping to engage them in a lot of work, and a lot of them join our group because they're just so interested. They want to volunteer. I mean, I can't imagine medical students actually have time to volunteer 5 hours a week to help us with projects that are going on, but that's where I think they're really going to learn it so well that it will be second nature for them to then go out and include in their practice moving forward. We work with various other universities and colleges that from your dietetic students to try to make sure again that they're getting a lot of dietary pattern, plant-based diet type information as part of their curriculum, which I'm sure is in there, but making sure that if they've got any questions specifically related, we can help address those. I've got culinary students I work with too to try to help kind of back and forth, making sure they are including that in the types of dishes they're making, and to help us to offer more culturally diverse dishes to our patients in the studies, in the app, trying to make sure that whoever joins the app, whatever cultural background they're coming from, hopefully I have a recipe in there that's something that speaks to you, and that it doesn't seem like it's all just one-sided and whatever I cook in my kitchen. So we try to reach out as much as possible to engage various levels of the community.
That's wonderful. I think that's one of the, I mentioned to you before the chat started that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put the speaker series together, because there's so much information, so many people working on this around Canada and North America and the world, that it's wonderful to hear from people like yourself and not just be everybody hearing from the one or two, sort of plant-based or vegan people in their town. So I wonder how does this work trickle down into small communities and people's physicians and it seems like right now there's so many people who are sort of left to their own devices to find out about a plant-based diet and what's and its benefits. So do you have any thoughts on that, of how does that, I know you're already doing an incredible amount of work on trying to educate, but how does it get out to the smaller communities?
That's a good question. Well, I guess in Toronto and like, for example, through St. Michael's Hospital, we've got like the portfolio poster is this massive poster in the hallway. So a lot of the endocrinologists there are talking to their patients about it. And in Toronto, we've got the various spectrum of people there. And we're hoping that, doctors everywhere are kind of being influenced by what's happening, I guess, in the main hospitals. Because the app is technically live right now, you'd be amazed at how many people I have creating accounts from all over the place, from small towns to small communities in Nova Scotia and even in Australia. People are creating accounts. So the information is getting to them in some way, and they're searching for it online, and they are coming across our app anyway. But yeah, it is something that is something I hope to be able to understand a little bit more and engage with a bit more, because I think, in the bigger community, it's easy to gather together, hundreds of people in a small sphere, because there's just so many people. But getting into the smaller communities and just making sure that the information is getting to them too is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And the conference that you went to, the Plant-Based Canada conference, is coming up in May. Is that right? And that's an online conference that that anybody can attend as well, which is a great another great resource. And technology, I with the app, with the websites and things like that, it's really makes things a lot easier. So yeah, thank you for that answer. You've also done a lot of work with Glycemic Index and Diabetes Canada. Can you talk to us about that research that you've done and that work that you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. So we've done a lot of studies on Glycemic Index, and I recently did a big meta-analysis on the Glycemic Index. So again, helping to provide the latest evidence to support encouragement in guidelines. So again, making sure that it's in there as one of the dietary patterns. Carbohydrates get a bit of a bad rap. Even now, I think we still are really battling with people who kind of think that, pasta is going to kill you or make you gain weight or something crazy like that. I'm Italian, so I mean, geez, we eat pasta all the time, and at least in my family, we're not suffering from any illnesses or anything wrong. So anyway, yeah, I think it's just probably a wave of that we're kind of going through right now, where carbohydrates don't have a very good reputation. So making sure that we're keeping something like the Glycemic Index top of mind is really important, because carbs can be very good. They bring a lot of good B vitamins and good carbohydrate, good starch, good brain fuel. But anyway, we worked with Diabetes Canada to help update the resource that they have available. It's actually also through Dietitians of Canada, so that they've got kind of the latest data on Glycemic Index for each of the individual foods. So for anybody that maybe is not familiar with the Glycemic Index, it's a ranking of carbohydrate containing foods according to how much they raise your blood sugar level. So basically how you test that is in a group of people, basically in a really short trial. You give people the food at 50 grams of available carbohydrate. see how much their blood sugar level rises. And then it's basically a ratio of that level over the level that you get over a reference food, which is typically 50 grams of glucose that you drink. So foods are then categorized as either low, so they cause low blood glucose spikes, medium, or high. So with the databases that we've kind of put together, we help to create these categories, the categorization of the foods, so that the resource that's available through Diabetes Canada is up to date, and people can use it to help select lower GI foods as part of their regular diet.
Okay, thank you. I have a few more questions, but we're getting some great questions in the chat here. So I'm going to turn to some of those before we get too far into the hour. We had somebody who had asked it for a clarification of step 4 of the portfolio diet. What is, could you talk a little bit more about what a sterol is? I know you briefly talked about that, but could you go over that again, if you don't mind?
Sure. So plant sterols are basically like your plant version of cholesterol in plant-based foods. So in even a vegetarian diet, you're probably only getting about 0.3 to 0.6 plant sterols in your diet. So getting it through food is really tough because it's just naturally not high in it. So way back they were doing studies where they were taking the plant sterols and putting them into supplemented foods like margarine, or in some places they had them even in orange juice, or you can just buy plant sterol capsules. And it does help to significantly reduce your cholesterol. Actually, the latest systematic reviews and analyses on plant sterols can show up to an 8 to 10% reduction. So if that's one thing that you're comfortable with doing, that's a great first step to help really bring down your cholesterol.
So is there any natural plant source of sterols?
Not in significant amounts. Unfortunately, it's not like you could just eat a ton of broccoli or something and you'd get it. It's not something that's abundant in any food.
Okay, and that specifically helps to bring cholesterol down. That's interesting. One question came in earlier. I've been told that hereditary cholesterol cannot be altered by diet. Do you have any comments on that or thoughts about that?
I think Dr. Jenkins is a great case in point to show you that you can. It takes a lot of determination. You can't just, I don't think, do just a little bit and see if that'll help. I think you got to go pretty hardcore at doing a diet, but it is possible.
Great, thank you. And then there's another question about oils. Oils have been mentioned in some health circles as damaging blood vessel linings. Is there a difference between adding oils such as cooking oils or salads, salad dressings, versus eating whole foods with oils naturally present in them, like nuts and seeds? Does the body deal with them differently?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there's definitely a debate on oils. If I had to mention a few kind of key things, not that I if you're more in one camp than the other, I don't want to sway you or anything, but I think personally from the evidence, I think a little bit of oil is probably fine. In my master's study, we did 2 versions of the portfolio diet. One that was lower in oils, so lower in fat as well, and one that was supplemented with monounsaturated fat. So it's the fat that comes from avocado, or it was a high oleic safflower oil. And what we demonstrated was that you have higher HDL levels, which helps with the removal of the cholesterol from the liver. So there can be some benefit if you're helping to increase the HDL without increasing your LDL, right? So your good cholesterol and your bad cholesterol. Also, if you think about the Mediterranean diet studies, the big PREDIMED study, which has to be mentioned, it's one of the groundbreaking studies in nutrition because it's one of the only nutrition studies out there that actually looked at cardiovascular outcomes. So it was a direct cause and effect relationship that was demonstrated there, which is not something you see in nutrition because the trials are just so expensive and need to be very large and are very time consuming to do. So what they demonstrated was that people that were given Mediterranean diet with olive oil, and it was about 1 liter of olive oil per week, they had huge reductions in cardiovascular events. So
did you say 1 liter?
1 liter a week per week
Of
olive oil. Of olive oil. Yes, it was a large amount.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean they actually ate the full 1 liter every single week, but that they actually provided the olive oil in that study. They also had another arm where it was extra virgin. It was the Mediterranean diet with nuts. And so essentially what that study showed was it didn't matter if you were given the olive oil or if you were given the nuts, both arms got these, amazing reductions in cardiovascular events. So it's pretty impactful evidence to demonstrate that, oil can't be that harmful if they're not having cardiovascular events. So, I'll leave it at those two as the major ones.
It's really hard because really contradictory to what, we've heard from Dr. Esselstyn, and in terms of, he says absolutely no oil, super low fat so yeah, it's sometimes very hard to, kind of parse through all these nutrition studies and decide what the best thing to do would be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Dr. Bernard did the very low fat vegan diet compared to the Mediterranean diet. And he did demonstrate in the 16 weeks in the overweight obese participants that he had in that study that on the low fat vegan diet, you do get massive weight loss relative to the Mediterranean diet. So like they did see greater reductions in body weight and in cholesterol levels as well. But the Mediterranean diet group had better reductions in blood pressure. But they also saw some benefit in other things. So again, when you're testing in this case, like good and good, two diets that have seen amazing reductions compared to our standard diet, you're seeing great effects. So even within them, there are some differences that we're seeing there. So it kind of maybe depends a bit on what your specific target is, right? So if you've got really high blood pressure, then maybe something like the Mediterranean diet would be something that you would respond a little bit better to, right? Everything is kind of personalized, and that's essentially where the guidelines go. It says, look at what your patient needs, what is personalized for your patient that might work for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have a question. What would be the recommended dose if getting plant sterols from capsules?
2 grams per day is the target.
Okay.
For an adult
Okay, thank you. And we've got lots of comments coming in too, but I don't see any other questions. Is there anyone, if anybody has other questions for Laura, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask.
I'm sorry, those comments are on me. Laura, let's link up after this, because I would love to get a comment. I've got room for a commentary in my next edition from you about the portfolio diet. You could put down some information. I can make sure it's published.
Cool. Okay.
And there's my soft shoe. So, yeah, because you know who I'm fighting at CCNM over plant-based eating. Their nutrition instructor is a keto guy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marianne. I'll be sending out information about the portfolio diet and Laura's links. So if you're welcome to follow up with that. Okay, let's go on. So I'd love to hear. We've talked a little bit about the fact that this research that you're doing, this work that you're doing to get this information out to the medical community is so hopeful for the future of nutrition research and policy in Canada. But what are the most hopeful changes you've seen over your time working in this field?
The interest. the interest and really the way people, I guess, are open to accepting the information. I don't know. I hope it's not a fad that plant-based diets are just like super popular right now. But I think especially with climate change becoming something that's really topical, at least what we've seen in some of the student surveys that we're conducting right now, the reason why a lot of people are changing for plant-based eating is kind of head to head, but a little bit more higher up on climate versus health. So we are seeing a bit of a change, I guess, even globally speaking, that people are generally just more aware of what's going on around them. There's a lot more interest even in animal justice as well. So you're seeing kind of this shift, I think, slowly in the culture of the way we kind of see things. Because it's really hard to talk to people about changing the way they eat because it's very personal. So you're kind of getting at a sore spot a little bit when you start criticizing the way people are eating. So I think if as a culture we're kind of shifting in that direction, it just becomes a little bit more acceptable to try new things and to adapt. Yeah, like like I said earlier, like I've got medical students that want to volunteer their time in our research group to learn more and to become involved in what's going on in the field. So there's definitely interest.
We that's really nice to hear. I'm so encouraged hearing all this, what you have to say tonight. So you are a busy professional person with a very obviously lots of commitments and long days. What is your go-to what's your go-to meal?
Oh my gosh, my go-to meal. I have so many. Well, I mean, one that's got a soft spot for me since when I was young. My grandmother always made these like rapini with like Romano beans, and I mean it was just something that was warm and comfortable, and just I don't know. It's an odd dish. I guess most people have something a bit more elaborate, but for me that's what it is. I've tried so many times. I haven't quite perfected the way she does it, but maybe I have to reach my 70s before I can, boil some greens and add some beans to it for it to taste so amazing. But yeah.
And when you were transitioning, what was one of the things that you found? Did you find it challenging, or what were some of the things that that maybe you had to find a way to get past?
The only thing I find challenging is family, because my immediate family, so like my husband, my kid, we are plant-based. It's not a problem. My son is hilarious when he goes to his grandmother's house and he's like, no, I'm not eating that. But he doesn't even know why, right? Like he just is like, no, I'm not having that. But it's more just, you go to your parents' house or somebody's house and they're like, oh, what do I feed you? It's like, oh, I know there's not enough vegetables in the world to like put together a half decent dish. Like it's not hard. It's really actually quite easy to just, get together some really good, easy, vegetarian style dishes. So I think that's really it. I had no problem getting rid of animal products. Maybe the only thing would be Parmesan cheese. I think that's the only thing, just that sprinkle on top of whatever it is that you're eating that just elevates it to a whole other level. That was the only thing that maybe was a bit challenging.
Well, I think you touched on something that, is, one of the key things of why the support group has provided such a great resource in our community is that people really support each other and feel like they're not the only ones who are doing it. You have that, that sounds like in Toronto with lots of colleagues and things like that. But I think that social piece, whether it's family or friends or whatever, it can be such a challenge for so many people when they're trying to make these healthy changes, or for whatever reason, whether it's the animals or the environment. And we have
definitely. I mean, our lab group is, because we're just so ingrained in all of the evidence and stuff. It's just so easy if we're ever, prior to COVID, ever like, oh, I'll go out to dinner or something. It's like, oh, cool, I know this new vegetarian restaurant or this new vegan restaurant. Let's try that. And everybody's like all gung ho and there's no questions asked. We just go and we're having this amazing time tasting this amazing food. But in a lot of, other circles that you might be in, it's like, oh, let's go here. And you're like, okay, so I'm going to have to get this one sad option. Okay. But, again, I hope the culture is changing so that we are going to get more options at your everyday type restaurant so that it's not that one sad veggie burger that's on the menu. You do have more options nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. That picture you painted of everybody being delighted to try out the new vegan restaurant, maybe the vision of the future, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
That's great. Okay, if there aren't any further questions, I think I'm going to say a huge thank you to Laura. A few people, yes, the recording will be sent out, Abby. If I can just say a little bit of a wrap up here, just a huge thank you to Laura and to all of you for joining us. I will be sending out the information about the portfolio diet and Laura's information in an email and along with the recording as well, if you'd like to watch it again, or we're getting lots of thank yous here too. You can probably see them. We have another speaker series event coming up Wednesday, April 6th at 3:30 p.m. We're going to be having Drs. R.H.N. and Shobha Rayapudi, who I think you probably know. They're both board certified lifestyle medicine doctors and are co-founders of The Gift of Health, a nonprofit organization based in Newfoundland, Canada. So for those of you who are watching tonight, please watch the Eventbrite page or my website, Plant-Based R.H.N. Again, I'll send that information out if you'd like to join us for that. You'd be more than welcome. And if you are interested in more support, we accept new members all the time with the Plant-Based Eating Support Network group. We have a different topic every month, and you'd be more than welcome to join us. You don't have to be in British Columbia. You can be anywhere. So without further ado, I would like to, I'll wrap this up. Thank you so much, Laura. I'm going to actually just remove the spotlight and we can see a few people have hopped off, but let's put it back to the gallery view here. Lots of faces, and give Laura a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here tonight and spending your time with us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to reach out.
Okay, we will do. And I hopefully we'll see you at the Plant-Based Canada.
Oh, I'll be there.
Yes, so we'll all see you there then.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay,
everybody.
Thanks.